Once upon a time, in a busy city filled with high buildings, loud cars, and people always in a hurry, there lived a young woman named Adeola. She was 27 years old, and if you ever saw her walking down the street, you would surely stop and stare. Her skin was the color of smooth honey under the warm sun. Her eyes sparkled like the rarest black pearls, and her smile could make even the grumpiest old man forget his worries. She moved like a queen, graceful, proud, and sure of herself. If there had been a beauty pageant for the whole world, Adeola would have easily won the crown without even trying. By day, Adeola worked as a secretary at the Grand Mark Group of Companies. The building where she worked stood tall like a mountain, with shining glass windows that sparkled under the sun. The inside was even grander. Golden chandeliers hanging from high ceilings, marble floors that clicked when you walked, and air so fresh it smelled like a garden in spring. Adeola was smart, polite, and quick with her fingers, typing letters, answering calls, and arranging meetings like a magician pulling strings out of her hat. Her salary was good, very good enough for nice clothes, a cozy apartment, and fine dinners. But Adeola had a secret that danced in her heart like a naughty flame. You see, Adeola loved to steal. Not just from anyone. No, Adeola had her own rules. She only stole from the rich politicians and businessmen who were greedy, who built their houses with stolen money while the poor slept hungry on the streets. At night, when the city lights twinkled and the world grew quiet, Adeola became someone else, a shadow, a whisper, a ghost in silk. She wore black clothes that hugged her body and soft shoes that made no sound. Her face was covered with a smooth black mask, only her glittering eyes peeking out. The houses she chose to visit were the finest in the city, huge mansions with iron gates taller than trees, gardens filled with flowers from faraway lands, and fountains that danced under the moonlight. Inside, the floors were polished until they shone like mirrors. Gold-framed paintings of proud ancestors stared from the walls. The air always smelled of expensive perfumes and old money. There were rooms filled with treasures, jewelry sparkling like stars, thick bundles of cash hidden inside drawers, and safes tucked behind secret panels. But none of these things could hide from Adeola. She moved like the wind, slipping through windows, dodging red blinking cameras, unlocking safes with hands as slight as feathers. Sometimes she would even pass by the owners themselves, fat politicians snoring loudly in giant beds, their bellies rising and falling like ships at sea. And before the first roaster crowd, before the first morning bus rumbled down the street, Adeola would be back in her simple but cozy apartment. She would wash her face, change into her sweet-smelling pajamas, and lay on her soft bed as if she had done nothing more exciting than drinking a glass of water. Her breathing steady, her face peaceful, her heart full of secret laughter. This went on for months. Nobody suspected a thing. The newspapers screamed about the mysterious robber who left the city's richest men shaking in their boots. But by morning, Adeola was just the charming secretary at Mark Group, handing coffee to her boss with a sweet smile. The city bustled with fear and wonder. Who was the bold thief that stole only from the corrupt and greedy, but never harmed a soul? Little did they know, the answer was hidden behind a beautiful face and a heart full of daring dreams. By morning, when the sun rose like a golden ball into the wide blue sky, Adeola was just the same beautiful young woman with her neat clothes, soft perfume, and gentle smile. But her nights were filled with daring adventures, and not for herself alone. No, Adeola never kept the riches she stole. She had no husband waiting for her at home, no boyfriend to whisper sweet nothings to her, no circles of friends to share laughter with. She had no family either. No mother to kiss her forehead, no father to hold her close, no brother or sisters to tease her. Adeola was all alone, like a bird with a broken wing, hiding her past deep in the dark corners of her heart. Every time she gathered enough bags of money, boxes of jewelry, priceless items taken from the houses of greedy men, she wore a different disguise. Sometimes she dressed as an old woman, her back bent and a scarf tied around her head. Other times she became a cheerful market woman or a silent figure wrapped in a plain shawl. She visited the motherless babies' homes first, the big houses where little children with bright eyes and empty bellies stayed, hoping for a bit of kindness. Adeola would arrive quietly, leaving behind boxes of food, rice, beans, milk, fruit, biscuits, enough to last for months. She bought them new clothes, colorful dresses, tiny shirts, soft shoes that didn't have holes, and always she left thick envelopes filled with cash, enough for school fees, toys, medicines, and warm blankets. The caretaker of the home, surprised and overjoyed, would whisper prayers of blessings into the air, not knowing who their mysterious helper was. The little children danced in circles, clapping their small hands, their faces shining brighter than the morning sun. Then, with a soft smile hidden under her disguise, Adeola would vanish back into the busy street before anyone could stop her. Next, she moved to the beggars lining the street corners, old men with faded eyes, mothers with dusty wrappers tied around their waists, rocking crying babies, young boys with torn shirts and bare feet, holding empty bowls. Adeola would walk quietly from one to the other, pretending to be just another passerby. But when she dropped a gift, thick bundles of clean cash, into their begging bowls, their life changed in an instant. Some gasped and wept openly. Others lifted their eyes to the heavens, shouting blessings. Some even ran after her, calling her an angel. But by the time they looked properly, she would be gone, just a soft whisper of perfume left in the air. The city began to talk, bustling like bees around honey. Who is the angel of the poor? They asked. Who brings money, food, and kindness when no one else cares? Nobody could guess. Nobody knew it was Adeola, the woman whose eyes sparkled with secrets, whose hands were skilled at both giving and taking, whose heart carried both sorrow and hope. At night, she was a shadow in the houses of the wicked. At dawn, she was a blessing in the hands of the needy. And by morning, she was simply Adeola, the secretary with a sweet smile and the silent sadness behind her smiles. But hidden deep in the heart of the city, in a corner, even Adeola tried to forget, where the memories of a past she could never run from, a past filled with betrayal, hunger and loneliness, a past that had turned her into the daring, lonely figure she had become. Night after night, Adeola continued her secret life, weaving through the city like a soft breeze. The newspapers called her the ghost. The politicians whispered about her in fear, their greedy hearts pounding in their chests. But Adeola stayed careful, silent and clever, until one night something changed. There was a certain politician in the city named Chief Alade. He was a very rich man with a belly that shook when he laughed and rings that covered almost all his fingers. He had stolen so much from the people that his house looked like a palace. White marble floors that shone like mirrors, golden staircase, velvet curtains that brushed the ground, and giant chandeliers that looked like hanging stars. And Chief Adeola was greedy, but he was not a fool. He had heard about the robberies, the missing cash, the empty safes, and the silent thief that nobody could catch, and so he made a plan. He filled his house with guards, tall men with sharp eyes and sharper guns. He installed hidden cameras, secret alarms, and even fake walls to hide behind. But most dangerous of all, Chief Alade set a trap. He placed a false safe filled with glittering jewelry and bundles of fake money, hoping to catch whoever dares to steal from him. But Adeola was no ordinary thief. That night, she stood on the rooftop of Chief Alade's mansion, her black clothes blending with the night sky. The cold air brushed against her face as she watched, waiting, studying. She noticed something. The guards were too alert. The light flickered strangely. The house smelled of danger, thick in the air like smoke. Still, Adeola moved. Like a cat, she slid down the roof, tiptoed past the backing doors that sniffed the air but didn't see her. She reached the first window, unlocking it with careful fingers. Inside, the house was silent, but she knew better than to trust the silence. She reached the room where the first safe was hidden, a beautiful room with walls painted gold and giant paintings of Chief Alade shaking hands with important-looking men. The safe sat there, shining proudly in the middle of the room, almost calling her name. But Adeola paused. She listened harder, and deep within the walls she heard it, the tiny humming of hidden cameras, the slow breathing of guards waiting behind false doors. Smiling quietly to herself, Adeola turned away from the shining safe and headed deeper into the house. She knew greedy men hid their true treasures in places even greedier than themselves. Sure enough, tucked behind a dusty old bookcase, she found a real safe, plain, almost ugly, the kind of thing Chief Adeola thought no one would notice. It took her only minutes to crack it open. Inside was real money, real jewelry, stacks and stacks of pure stolen wealth. Adeola quickly filled a small black bag, her heart beating steady and calm. But as she slipped out of the secret room, a sound broke the stillness. Footsteps, loud, fast, coming towards her. The trap had been triggered. Without thinking, Adeola raced down the long golden corridor, her feet making no sound. Behind her, guards shouted, light flashed, alarms screamed like angry birds. She did not panic. She leaped through a window, rolled smoothly on the garden grass, and disappeared into the maze of flowers and trees. By the time the guards reached the garden, all they found was the cool night breeze and the soft flutter of leaves. Adeola was gone. Back in her little apartment before dawn, she slipped into her pajamas, wiping the dust from her skin, and lay back on her bed with a soft sigh. Her heart still danced from the adventure, but her face was calm, her secret safe. And outside, the city woke up once again, busy and noisy, never knowing how close it had come to catching the ghost in the night. After the night of Chief Alade's mansion, the city seemed louder. The sirens screamed more often. The newspapers shouted in bold letters, "The ghost strikes again. Who is this mysterious thief?" At Mark Group of Companies, Adeola continued her work as if nothing had changed. She still smiled politely, answered calls, arranged meetings, and wore her neat, simple dresses. She was the picture of peace, beautiful, gentle and harmless. But slowly, quietly, things began to shift. One afternoon, as she sat at her desk, her boss, Mr. Benson, a plump man with small glasses, called her into his office. He smiled warmly, but there was something sharp behind his eyes that made Adeola's heart tap a little faster. "Adeola," he said, tapping his fat fingers against the desk, "you've been doing a wonderful job, truly wonderful." "Thank you, sir," Adeola replied sweetly, lowering her lashes the way she always did. But Mr. Benson said, adjusting his glasses, "The city is dangerous these days. Robberies, strange activities. The company has decided to run background checks on all employees. Just a simple routine, nothing to worry about." He smiled again, but it was the kind of smile a cat gives to a mouse before it pounces. Adeola smiled back, just as sweetly. Inside, her mind raced like a drum. She bowed slightly and left the office, her heart calm, but her thoughts sharp as knives. She had always been careful, no fingerprint, no trails, nothing tied to her secret life. But now, the walls around her were beginning to whisper. Later that same week, at the local market, where she sometimes bought fruit, she noticed something strange. A man watching her. He wore simple clothes, pretending to be looking at oranges, but his eyes followed her every move. When she walked down the street, she heard the quiet cough of another man stepping out of her way, not a random passerby, but someone watching. They were looking for her. Still, Adeola didn't rush. She didn't panic. She bought her fruits with a sweet thank you, smiled at the vendor, like any normal woman would. But that night, before leaving her apartment to perform another of her daring missions, she opened her closet and stared at her black clothes, her marks, her tools, and for the first time, she whispered to herself, "I must be even more careful now," because the city was waking up, the greedy men were getting smarter, and somewhere in the twisting alleys and bright offices, shadows were gathering at her door. Still, Adeola was not afraid. She was the night wind, the soft whisper, the ghosts the city could not catch. Not yet. The city was restless. Everywhere Adeola went, she felt it. The sharp eyes, the low whispers, the unseen ants weaving invisible nets. The rich men were desperate now. They hired more guards. They bought more cameras. They even paid secret agents to pretend to be ordinary people, hoping to catch the ghost in the act. But Adeola had lived with danger too long to be afraid. In fact, it made her more determined. She chose her next mission carefully, a haste so daring, so bold, that the greedy men would tremble at the very mention of it. Her target was Senator Bamidele, one of the richest and most corrupt politicians in the land. Senator Bamidele lived in a mansion so grand that it looked like a king's palace from the old fairy tales. Tall white pillars stood at the entrance. Lions carved from stone guided the front steps. The gates were heavy iron with swirling designs and cameras that watch every inch. Inside, the walls were covered with paintings worth more than gold. The furniture was polished so brightly you could see your reflection, and in the center of it all, hidden in a special underground vault, were treasures stolen from the people, diamonds, cash, gold coins, and ancient artifacts. Adeola spent 2 weeks planning. She studied the guard's routine. She memorized the camera placement. She found secret paths through the garden where the security lights didn't reach. On the chosen night, she wore in black once again, but this time she was smarter. She wore soft gloves made from silk to leave no marks. She tied her hair tighter. She carried a tiny device to block the security cameras for just a few precious minutes. At exactly 2 a.m., when the mansion was deep in sleep, Adeola slipped past the first gate. The iron bars that seemed so strong by day now opened easily with a little twist from her clever aunt. She moved through the garden like a shadow. A guard yawned near the pool. She ducked behind a tree. A dog barked in the distance. She froze like a statue. Her heart beat steady. Inside the house, she used a device, a tiny button no bigger than a coin, and for 3 minutes, the cameras blinked and went dark. 3 minutes. 3 minutes to vanish like mist. She found the hidden door behind a giant mirror. A narrow staircase led downward in the secret vault, and there, sparkling under a single golden light, were the treasures. Adeola didn't waste time. She filled her black bag with diamonds that shimmered like 1,000 tiny stars. She grabbed wads of cash, stuffing them quickly and neatly. She even took an ancient crown, heavy with jewelries, that once belonged to a great king, a treasure that should have been in a museum, not locked away by greedy ants. But just as she zipped her bag shut, a soft click echoed in the air. Her heart jumped once, like a startled bird. She knew that sound. The alarm had been triggered. The guards would be coming. Fast! Adeola raced up the staircase. She slipped back through the mirror, her breath soft, her body low to the ground. Already, she heard every footstep pounding through the hallways, angry voices shouting orders. But Adeola didn't run blindly. She followed her path, the path she had memorized like a song, out through the east garden, under the old mango tree, across the stone bridge that no one guided because they thought no thief would be foolish enough to use it. And as the guards searched the front gate, she climbed over the back wall, slipping into the dark street. Just as the clock struck 3, she didn't look back. She didn't need to. By the time the guards realized the vault was empty, Adeola was already far away, a black bag full of stolen treasures meant for the poor. At dawn, she sat once more on her soft bed, the morning sun touching her skin gently. No one would guess that the woman smiling quietly at the morning tea had just stolen millions from the richest man in the city. And soon, the orphanages would have more food. The beggars would find cash tucked secretly into their bowls. The forgotten children would wear new clothes and dance in the street. all because of a woman with no family, no friends, and no one to call her own, only a secret fire that burned in her heart for justice. Life at Mark Group of Companies carried on like a steady river. Phones rang, shoes clicked against shiny floors, laughter floated here and there, sometimes loud, sometimes soft like the breeze, and Adeola, in her neat dresses and calm smile, continued to be the quiet flower in the middle of it all, beautiful yet untouched. But one morning, something new stirred the air. Mr. Benson, the company's big boss, stood proudly at the entrance, his round face beaming like a full moon. Everyone gathered around, he called, waving his hand. The staff hurried in, secretaries, managers, assistants, all whispering among themselves. And then the door swung open, and in stepped Nelson Benson, the boss's only son, fresh from years of living abroad. Nelson was a sight that made many of the young women in the office steal second glances. He was tall, standing like a prince carved out of marble. His skin was smooth and rich, the color of warm honey kissed by the sun. His hair was thick and black, styled perfectly yet carelessly, as if he had run his hands through it while smiling. His eyes were deep brown, kind, curious, with a small spark of mischief hidden inside. A clean, trimmed beard shaped his strong jaw, giving him the look of a man who had seen the world but carried no arrogance in his heart. He wore a simple white shirt tucked into dark trousers, yet he looked more elegant than all the suits in the building. When Nelson smiled, it was the kind of smile that could melt a frozen heart, and when he spoke, his voice low, smooth and rich, the air seemed to hum around him. "This is my son, Nelson," Mr. Benson said proudly. "He will be joining us from now on, learning the ropes, understanding the business." Everyone clapped politely, some even laughing a little too loudly. Nelson shook hands, greeted a few managers, shared a few jokes, but then his eyes found her, Adeola, sitting quietly at her desk, arranging papers with her usual gentle grace. For a moment, Nelson simply stared, as if the busy office had fallen away and only she remained, a quiet mystery wrapped in beauty. Adeola felt his gaze, but she didn't look up. She was used to stares. She was used to admiration. She had learned long ago that the easiest way to stay hidden was to give no one a path into her heart. Later that day, when she stepped out into the hallway with a file in hand, she nearly bumped into him. "Sorry," Nelson said quickly, his hand reaching out to steady her. Their eyes met, just for a heartbeat. Adeola's gaze was calm, unreadable. Nelson's was open, admiring. "I am Nelson," he said, flashing that easy, warm smile. "And you are?" "Adeola," she answered simply, her voice soft but firm. "Nice to meet you, Adeola," he said, his tone different from the way he spoke to others, gentler, more real. She nodded once, then turned gracefully and walked away, her footsteps light, leaving behind the soft scent of lavender. Nelson watched her go, feeling something stir in his chest, something unfamiliar. He wasn't used to women walking away from him so easily. He wasn't used to feeling like he wanted to know more. From that day, Nelson found reasons to come near her desk. A question here, a comment there, always polite, always careful, always persistent. He praised her. He asked if she would join him for coffee. He offered help with small things, but Adeola kept the same calm wall between them, smiling politely, speaking only when necessary, never encouraging, never rude. She was a garden with closed gates, and the more Nelson tried to peek inside, the more he wanted to find a way through. He did not know, could not know, that the woman he admired was not only beautiful but dangerous, carrying secrets deeper than the ocean. And for now, Adeola simply lived a double life. The careful secretary by day, the invisible ghost by night. And Nelson, with all his charm and bright smile, was just another ripple on the surface of a silent world. Just for now. Nelson Benson was not a man who gave up easily. When Adeola continued to smile politely yet remain distant, he decided to try something different, something that would pull her out from behind her careful decks. One bright Friday morning, he announced it cheerfully at the staff meeting. "We've been working hard," Nelson said, standing tall with a playful grin. I think it's time for a little break. A team outing, a small charity event at the children's home nearby. Good food, good company, good cause. The staff clapped excitedly, happy for a day outside the office. Nelson's eyes, however, flickered once toward Adeola, who sat quietly in her usual spot. She said nothing, but inside, Adeola's mind was already weighing it carefully. An outing, a children's home, public smiles, careful eyes. She could not refuse without drawing attention, and so she nodded when the sign-up sheet came around. Just as Nelson had hoped, the day of the outing was bright and golden. The company rented a few buses to drive everyone there. The children at the home laughed and sang, their bright faces like little suns. There were games, dancing, food, and lots of cheerful noise. Adeola moved gently through the crowd, helping quietly. She served food, played with some of the younger children, and donated a small envelope of cash, careful to make it look like it came from the company, not a personal gift. Nelson watched her from a distance, the way she bent to speak kindly to a child, the way she smiled, though rare, lit up her whole face when it did appear, the way she stayed on the edges of the crowd, never seeking attention, yet somehow becoming the most unforgettable person there. He found her later, standing near a tree, looking up at the clear blue sky. "You are very good with them," Nelson said, stepping closer. Adeola glanced at him, her eyes unreadable. "I like children," she said simply. "They like you too," Nelson said. He chuckled. "Honestly, you have the whole place under your spell." Adeola smiled faintly, but said nothing. Nelson shoved his hands into his pocket awkwardly. "I know you're not the type to open up easily," he said carefully. "But if you ever feel like talking, or just, I don't know, grabbing a coffee after work," he shrugged, trying to sound casual but meaning every word. Adeola looked at him fully for the first time that day, and for a tiny flickering moment, something gentle crossed her face, almost a sadness, almost a warning. "Thank you," she said softly, "but I prefer to be alone." It was said kindly without coldness, but it was the door closed once again. Nelson smiled, though he felt the stink, and nodded. "I will take what I can get," he said playfully, and just like that, Adeola turned away, blending once more into the crowd. The days that followed seemed normal on the outside. Emails flew back and forth, phones buzzed. The photocopiers hummed like busy bees, and Adeola, with her perfect posture and calm eyes, went about her work as if nothing could ever shake her. But Nelson was not finished trying. One afternoon, just as the sun began to soften in the sky, a delivery man appeared at the reception desk, holding a small simple box tied with soft golden ribbon. "For Miss Adeola," he said, smiling. The office buzzed with excitement. A secret admirer? Adeola took the box quietly, ignoring the curious eyes around her. At her desk, she untied the ribbon carefully, lifting the lid. Inside was a simple, perfect white lily, pure, elegant, untouched by any tongue, and beside it, a small note written in neat handwriting. "For the rarest flower in this garden, Nelson." Adeola stared at the lily for a long time. It was beautiful, not loud or boastful, just quietly lovely. It reminded her painfully of the dreams she used to have as a little girl, dreams she had long locked away. She closed the box gently and placed it inside her desk drawer without a word. When Nelson passed by her desk later, pretending to be looking for a file, he glanced at her, hopeful. Adeola looked up, met his eyes briefly, and gave him a small soft nod. It wasn't an invitation. It wasn't a thank you spoken aloud, but it was the first time she had acknowledged him beyond duty. Nelson's heart lifted slightly, and he smiled all the way back to his office. Yet, while flowers bloomed and small hopes grew quietly inside the building, outside, the city buzzed with a different energy. The newspaper screamed about the ghost thief who still robbed the rich and powerful, leaving behind broken votes and bruised pride. The mayor called secret meetings. The police set new traps. Guards were doubled at every important mansion. New alarms were installed that could sense even the lightest touch. Whispers floated in the air like smoke. Who is this thief? Where do they hide during the day? Is it a man, a woman, or a whole team? And though the world searched and guessed, No one looked twice at Adeola, the quiet secretary with her neat files and silent ways. That very night, after another long day of polite smiles and stolen glances from Nelson, Adeola became a shadow once more. She had learned long ago how to listen, how to move where no one expected. Tonight, she chose a greedy oil merchant's mansion, one who had cheated thousands to build his golden empire. The house was a fortress, glass towers, shining pools, lasers, guards with sharp eyes. But it didn't matter. Adeola studied the patterns, found the hidden cracks, the little forgotten doors that even the merchant himself had forgotten. She slipped in like breath through a cracked window. She found the safe, heavy and new, full of precious jewels and thick bundles of cash. And when she left, silent as a dream, she dropped a single gold coin on the merchant's polished marble floor, a tiny mocking gift from the ghost. By the time the city woke up to the fresh headlines of outrage, Adeola was back at her desk, typing away at her keyboard, her face calm, her spirit untouched. Nelson walked past her desk again, trying not to seem obvious. He dropped a file deliberately, and when she bent to pick it up first, their hands touched lightly for just a second. Adeola drew back politely, but Nelson's smile grew anyway. He wasn't giving up, and somewhere deep inside her hidden heart, though she would never admit it, Adeola felt a tiny flicker, like the first breath of a dangerous flame, one she had sworn never to let burn. In the weeks that followed, Adeola surprised even herself. She went on 2 outings with Nelson. Small things, careful things. The first was a quiet lunch in a little art cafe not far from the office. Nelson had chosen it because it was private, filled with soft music, and no one from work. She sat across from him, sipping tea with poise, answering his questions with grace, but always careful. Her laugh was real, but guided. Her eyes lit up, but only briefly. She was like a locked book. Nelson could read the title, feel its weight in his hands, but the pages remained sealed. The second outing was even quieter, a walk in the park. Late in the evening, even the world was dim and slow. Nelson brought her a gift, a golden necklace, customized with her initials. Gently, he had leaned close and placed it around her neck, and as he did, he noticed a small faint black scar just under the line of her collarbone. He had not asked about it. She had said nothing, and the moment passed like a leaf in the wind. But Nelson remembered. He remembered everything. Despite those quiet moments, Adeola never stopped being who she was. By night, she still studied the map of the city, targeting only those who had built their homes on the broken backs of the poor. This time, her eyes were on Alhaji Umaru, a high-ranking custom officer known for his cruelty behind smiling press interviews. He seized the goods of poor traders under the excuse of national policy, only to sell them secretly, growing rich in silence. To Adeola, he was just another name on her list. What she did not know was that Alhaji Umaru was the father of Nasiru, Nelson's oldest and dearest friend. Nor did she know that Nelson was sleeping in that very house that night, visiting his friend for a quiet weekend. The mansion stood like a palace, tall, white with wide pillars and glowing chandeliers. Guards patrolled the gate, dogs barked in cages, camera turned like restless eyes, but none of that stopped Adeola. At 1:47 a.m., the ghost entered. She moved like a shadow in the corridors, silent, sharp, swift. She passed the grand hallway with its gold-framed portraits. She crossed the sitting room with its heavy pageant rock. She paused only once at the safe in Alhaji's study, cracking it open with her steady fingers. What she didn't see was Nelson, already awake, standing in the shadows of the staircase. He had been light in sleep. A faint familiar scent had woken him, lavender and something darker, deeper. And then he saw it, the way she moved, so precise, so graceful. He had seen her walk like that before, in heels across the office tiles, in flat shoes across a park path. He didn't call out. He did not stop her. He watched, his military-trained eyes following every breath she took. Yes, you see, Nelson wasn't just a businessman's son, he had served 6 years in American force, trained in tactics, discipline, and pursuit. And when the silent alarm triggered and the house exploded into noise, Nelson reacted instantly. Guards shouted, lights burst on, dogs barked, but Adeola was already running, her long legs carrying her across the garden, flipping over a low wall with a thief's ease. Nelson chased at her. His feet flew, his breath stayed steady. He was faster than most men, stronger, trained. He grabbed at her cloak. She twisted. He reached for her marks, but she jumped off. But just before she leapt over the high fence, he tugged out. The mark slipped off for a second. Her face turned, not fully, but just enough to reveal that scar on her neck. That unmistakable black mark. The same one he had seen weeks ago when he slipped the golden necklace around her neck. The same one. And in that terrible moment, everything inside Nelson went still. Not shock, not anger, just a deep burning certainty. It was her, Adeola, the woman he had fallen for, the thief the entire city was hunting, the ghost who had slipped through every trap. Until now, she was gone by the time he climbed the fence, gone into the dark like smoke in the wind, but her marks remained in his hand, and in his heart, something cold and confusing settled in, like winter arriving in the middle of summer. The days that followed at the office, Nelson had watched Adeola from his office window for days after the break-in at Alhaji Umaru's mansion. She moved through the office like a ghost in daylight, calm, graceful, innocent, as though she hadn't been the shadow that glided through Umaru's house just nights ago. But Nelson knew, as scent, as swift movement, the scar on her neck, everything pointed to her. He hadn't stopped thinking about it since. He had dug quietly through the company's record, found her personal file, and copied down her home address into his phone. Saturday morning came quickly, with resolve firm in his chest. He parked a few blocks from her place, not wanting to alert her by any means. He walked the rest of the way. Adeola's home was quiet, nestled in the peaceful part of the town. The apartment was modest on the outside. Inside, Adeola sat in a cozy living room. The space smelled faintly of vanilla and old books, earth-toned walls, framed elegant furniture, a velvet sofa, dark wood shelves, a soft rug beneath her feet. She held a half-filled glass of red wine, staring quietly at nothing in particular. Her mind was replaying that night. Who was the man that pulled her marks off? He had been fast, military fast. Could he be from the force? The doorbell rang. Her heart skipped. No one had visited her in years. She lived in complete solitude. Carefully, she stood and checked the security hole. Nelson, she froze. What was he doing here? Her thought raced. She waited. The doorbell rang once again. She hesitated, then opened the door slightly, her eyes wide with alarm. Nelson smiled gently. May I come in? He asked, cool and calm. Still stunned, she stepped aside. He entered. The tension was thick. She gestured for him to sit. As soon as he did, he reached into his jacket and pulled out the black marks. He placed it slowly on the table in front of her, never breaking eye contact. Adeola stiffened. Her eyes widened, lips parted slightly, but she didn't flinch. Nelson leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. Why are you the ghost the entire country is whispering about? She stared at the marks, then at him. How dare you come into my home and accuse me of something so vile? Are you out of your mind? Just answer the damn question, he said, sharper now. Her breathing grew shallow. And so what? She's finally spat. So what if I am? What do you care? Nelson's expression shifted. He looked smaller, gentler, almost sad. But why, Adeola? Why all of this? The air in the room changed. Her shoulders dropped. Her voice cracked. Because I was broken, she whispered. Broken since I was a child. She sat back, stumbled slightly into the couch. Her eyes brimmed with long suppressed tears. Nelson didn't interrupt. He just listened. And then her story poured out. My father served a powerful politician, Senator Bako, with unwavering loyalty for over 17 years. He was never late, never absent. He worked with every ounce of strength he had. We were a family of 4. My father, my mother, my little brother Adeyemi, and me. At the time, my mother was pregnant and life was unbearably hard. We barely had enough to eat and we lived in constant struggle, scraping by every single day. One day, my mother went into labor. We rushed her to the hospital, but hours passed and the baby wouldn't come. The doctor recommended an emergency cesarean to save them both, but we didn't have the money. My father, desperate and hopeful, ran to Senator Bako, the man he had faithfully served for nearly 2 decades. But Bako didn't help. Instead, he mocked him, telling his guards to throw my father out of the compound. He asked my father why a poor man like him would even consider having children. My father begged. He got on his knees, humiliated himself, but Bako showed no mercy. He not only rejected him, but also fired him on the spot and called him a worthless man. We were shattered. My mother fought through unimaginable pain for 2 more days. Eventually, her body gave out. She died in the hospital from complications and neglect. We cried for days. The air in our home was heavy with grief, and joy became a stranger to us. But fate wasn't done with us. Not long after, Adeyemi, my little brother, suddenly fell ill. He stopped eating. He could barely move. We had no money for a hospital visit, and I was just a scared 15-year-old girl. My father tried every day, but nothing worked. In desperation, he returned to Senator Bako's house one more time, hoping again, this time, the man might show a shade of compassion. But that very day, Bako's house had been robbed and the thieves had just fled. My father walked in unknowingly, only to find the place in disarray. Bako spotted him and immediately accused him of being one of the robbers. He ordered his guards to seize him and had him thrown into the police custody. My father was tortured for 2 days. No trial, no investigation, just beatings and more beatings. He died from the brutality, and as if that wasn't enough, Senator Bako retrieved his body and dumped it in a river, letting the fish feed on him, as though we were nothing but trash. Adeola paused, trying to hold back the tears, but they streamed down her cheeks. Nelson's face softened with pity. He handed her a clean handkerchief and she gently dabbed her face before continuing. I waited for him for 2 days, but he never came back. I started to panic. Meanwhile, I had been treating Adeyemi with some herbs my mother had taught me about before she died. He was getting a bit better, managing to eat tiny portions. On the 3rd day, I left Adeola alone in the house sleeping and went to Senator Bako's house myself. I had to find my father. When I arrived, I found Bako in his living room, casually counting money. I greeted him respectfully and told him I was Mr. Ade's daughter, his former help. He looked at me with a licentious grin and told me to come sit on his lap. I refused. I told him I was there to ask about my father, but instead of answering, he ordered his guard to grab me and drag me into his private chambers. There, he raped me. I screamed. I cried, but no one helped. No one came. When he was done, he stood up, insulted me, called me the daughter of a stupid poor man, and even admitted to what he did to my father. My soul chattered, and for 3 days he kept me captive without food, without water, and continued to assault me. On the 3rd day, he threw me out like baggage. I walked home in tears, broken and aching in every part of my being. But what awaited me at home was worse. I saw people gathered outside our compound, their faces drenched in sorrow. I ran inside and found my brother's lifeless body lying on the mat. He had died alone. His small body was already swollen. I screamed until my voice broke. Neighbors had to hold me back from tearing my skin off in anguish. Some boys helped me bury him that day, and I sat by his grave crying for days, asking the heavens why it was a crime to be born poor. Then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I discovered I was pregnant with Senator Bako's child. He was the only man who had ever touched me. My whole world stopped. My dreams turned to ash. My pride, my innocence, all gone. The entire neighborhood rejected me. They called me a whore. No one ever asked what had happened to me. They only saw the shame, not the story. I carried the pregnancy in silence and humiliation. 9 months later, I went into labor. I screamed for help, but no one came. So I did it myself. I pushed, and after what felt like a lifetime, I gave birth. A boy. I held his tiny fingers, felt his fragile breath, and just a minute later, he died in my arms. I buried him beside Adeola, and that was the last time I cried. Not until now. One night, while walking through my neighborhood, I saw a group of thugs fighting in the street. In the chaos, I noticed a gun carelessly left on the floor. I slowly walked up to it, picked it up and ran. No one saw me. They were too busy brawling. I didn't stop running until I reached Senator Bako's house. I slipped in quietly, unnoticed, and headed straight to the room where he had once violated me. There he was, the wicked man, fast asleep, snoring loudly. Rage burned through me. All I could think about was revenge. I had seen enough movies at a neighbor's house to know the basic of using a gun, how to cock it and how to pull the trigger, and how to muffle the sound with a pillow. So that's exactly what I did. I picked up the pillow next to him, placed it over his head and pulled the trigger. Just like that, he was gone, lying in his own pool of blood. I didn't feel fear. I felt relief. Then I ran. I left before anyone could notice and disappeared. After that night, I left everything behind. The pain, the past, the memories, and came here to start a new life. Adeola wiped her tears with the handkerchief Nelson had given her as she finished her story. She stood up, walked over to the table, and poured herself a glass of wine. Her hands trembled slightly as she took a sip. Nelson remained silent, overwhelmed. Then slowly he approached her, gently took her hand in his, and asked, "Why did you start stealing from the rich? What do you do with the money you take?" Adeola looked into his eyes, firm and unflinching. "I only steal from men like Bako. I take from the devils in gold and give it to those whose stomachs aches with hunger," she replied. "To the babies with no mothers, the beggars on the streets, the ones the world forgets." Nelson's eyes filled with emotion. "Then let me protect you, please, Adeola. I love you. But you must stop now. People are watching. One wrong step and..." She stared at him, uncertain. "I love you," he said again. "Please." For the first time in her life, Adeola saw someone look at her not with pity, but with pure, unfiltered love. Maybe, just maybe, she could let someone in. After the night of raw confessions and shared truth, something shifted in Adeola. Nelson's words echoed in her ears for days. "I love you. I will protect you." No one had ever spoken to her with such warmth and conviction. It felt foreign but comforting. From that day forward, Adeola changed. She and Nelson began to date quietly, away from the eyes and ears of the office. He was gentle, respectful, and genuinely cared for her. For the first time in years, Adeola allowed herself to feel loved again. Real love, not stolen moments in the dark, but sunlight and laughter. Nelson became at peace. His presence alone felt like healing balm on a battered soul. Nelson helped her break free from the life of theft. She stopped robbing completely. No more dark nights in black suit. No more climbing walls and dodging bullets. She deleted every plan, destroyed every trace of her old life. Her heart and conscience began to heal. As months passed, peace returned to the city. The whispers about the ghostly thief died down. News headlines had moved on. No more breaks in, no more daring haste. The people only had memories and speculation, and gradually even those faded. But peace sometimes is only temporary. Meanwhile, Nasiru had never been able to forget the night of the robbery at his father's mansion. The break-in had been too precise, too clean, too surgical. It wasn't the work of an average dog. It was someone smart, someone who knew the house. At first, he dismissed it as just another attack from jealous political rivals, but weeks after, things began to disturb him. One evening, Nasiru sat in his father's study, scanning the surveillance footage that had once been too grainy to analyze properly. He zoomed in on the clip where the masked figure entered the house. Though the face was covered, something about the thief's movement struck him. The elegance, the confidence, the swiftness. It wasn't masculine at all. It was feminine. He replayed the video over and over again. The height, the slim build, the subtle swing in the stride. It was definitely a woman, a very calculated one. The next clue came from his father's old guard, Musa, who had also witnessed the night of the robbery. During a casual conversation, Musa whispered, "Oga, that thief gets strange perfume. Oh." After she left, the room still smelled like sweet flowers. That was the same perfume Nasiru had once smelt on Adeola when he visited Nelson at work. His suspicions started growing. Could it be her? At first, it seemed too absurd to believe. Adeola, that quite reserved PA to Nelson's father. But then, memories flooded back. How Nelson had reacted after the robbery, overly calm and composed. How he abruptly became protective of Adeola after that night. How his mood shifted when the topic of the robbery came up. It was too coincidental. Nasiru began quietly digging. He visited the HR department one day under the guise of requesting something for Nelson's birthday. While there, he accidentally saw Adeola's personal file, her address, her background, her single status, and her quick hiring process. It didn't add up. Everything pointed back to her. And if Adeola was the ghost, Nelson had to know. He gave Nelson time, waiting to see if he had confessed, but nothing. So he came to confront him directly at his house. Nasiru sat across from Nelson, eyes locked with his old friend. "You know, I have been thinking," he said slowly, "about the night of the robbery. You acted strangely that day." Nelson raised a brow. "Calm. I don't recall." "I do. You were quiet, but alert. Too alert, like you were guiding something. You know now, Nelson, we both trained in this American force for years. So I know everything about you, and I know your every move." "What are you getting at, Nasiru?" Nelson asked reluctantly. Nasiru leaned forward. "I think I know what the ghost is. It's Adeola." Nelson flinched, just slightly, but Nasiru caught it. "Don't be ridiculous. Come on, bro. I know that perfume. I know that walk. I have seen the footage. It was a woman with training." Nelson tried to stay calm, but the pressure cracked him. "You are wrong," he said, but his voice was less steady now. Nasiru pressed harder. "You knew, didn't you? You knew she was the one. You've been covering up for her all this time, bro." And that was the moment Nelson looked away. A silence fell between them. Not the silence of denial, but of surrender. Unknown to them, Adeola had been standing silently at the hallway, hearing every word, her heart breaking, her back against the cold wall, her eyes fixed on the floor, her heart shattered with every word. She had trusted Nelson. She had loved him. But now, her secret wasn't safe anymore. Quietly, she walked into the bedroom, took a pen and paper and wrote, "My dear Nelson, thank you for showing me love, the kind of love I never thought I would feel again. But we can't be together anymore. My secret isn't safe. My presence now brings danger to your life. By the time you read this letter, I will be far away. Don't look for me. Nelson, you will never find me. I have gone for good. Gone forever. I love you, Adeola. She folded the letter, placed it on the center table, and stepped out through the back door. Her movement swift and silent, like the wind, like a ghost. And just like that, Adeola was gone. Gone for good, gone forever. And no one ever saw her again. The end. Hey lovelies, I hope you have learnt a lesson or two from this story. The moral lesson from Adeola's story is that never underestimate the quiet pain people carry. Behind every smile or silence might be a storm of trauma no one knows about, and circumstances can shape a person, but they don't define their heart. Adeola stole, yes, but not for greed. She fought back for justice in a broken world. And love has the power to heal, but also the power to hurt when trust is broken. We must never ignore the cries of the poor. The evil that strives in silence can destroy the entire generations. Power without compassion is dangerous. Senator Bako's wealth couldn't save him from his cruelty. Sometimes justice is served not by the system, but by the hands of those failed by it. Even the strongest hearts still long for love and safety. Thank you for sharing this journey with Adeola, a woman shaped by pain, driven by justice, and remembered in silence.